Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Academic Ally podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about money matters. I'm Brandon, today's host, and today we'll be exploring navigating careers in the world of finance and the finance industry. Today, we are joined by the Associate Professor in the College of Business and Economics of Australia National University, Professor Jo Dreinko, who is joining us virtually from Canberra, Australia.
Hello.
So good to have you here with us today. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
for
your
having
time.
me.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So finance is something that affects all of us, from the stock markets to everyday financial decisions. We have to make so many in this world, yet so many of us don't truly understand how it works and whether this career is fit for us or whether this might be something that we may not or may want to do. So in this episode today, Professor Drienko will help us unpack what finance really means and share some valuable experience and advice for anyone curious about pursuing a future in this industry. So again, thank you so much, Professor, for joining us.
You're welcome. Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Our first question for you today is what initially drew you to the finance industry and what keeps you motivated today?
Yeah, so excellent question. So I was drawn into finance very early on. I actually come from a very humble family where money was always tight. So getting pocket money, budgeting for something that I really wanted to buy as a young boy was commonplace in my household. So money, saving it, putting it in a bank account. I got my savings account very early when I was a young boy, looking at earn interest, even though it wasn't a lot of money, it was like $10 of interest per month or something small, really got me interested in how interest works, how time value of money works, which are introductory finance concepts we teach, or most universities teach in their first year students. And then entering university, I just like a lot of undergraduates, I did a lot of courses. I did accounting courses, economics courses, finance courses, statistical courses. And the one that just came naturally to me that I didn't even have to study for, I just read it once and I understood it fully, was finance. And all the grades I got, yeah, I remember studying for stats subjects, economic subjects, and getting reasonable grades. But for finance courses, I didn't even have to study; it just came naturally.
That's
So there was
amazing. That's
there was
amazing.
obviously a passion there. And then after university, I got a job. I was a stockbroker for a couple of years. And then I came back to university to do a PhD. And then I became a financial analyst for Credit Suisse in Sydney, working in an investment bank on the trading floor. And what kept me motivated, which is the second part of your question, is it offered a challenge. Finance is it's quite a challenging industry to be in because it's fast paced and everybody around you is an A player. So you have to keep up and learn new things, offer new products, meet with clients, discuss different trading strategies with your colleagues. So it is challenging and the hours can be long, especially for a new employee. But the upside is it paid really, really well. It basically paid double the starting salary for an average job for a university graduate. So
It's amazing.
um, I learned a lot and I got paid very well. So that's what kept me motivated. And coming back to university, continuing to research in finance and not being far away. It's a fascinating field that I'm constantly learning. I'm an associate professor in finance. I've been doing it for over 20 years and there's still a lot of stuff I don't know. So it is a very large field.
I really like how you said that studying ability for finance. I really wish I had that for my economics in school. I mean, yeah. I mean, our school does have business and economics as well, and it's a very, very popular subject here in ACS International. And many of our students go into economics and business to try having a career something like yours. But what I see very evident in one of these, and in a lot of these classes, is when they go into economics or business, they're always like, oh, I want to do investment or I want to do banking.
Yeah,
I want to do
that's
this and
right.
that, like very, very direct approaches, but they don't really know what it means. So,
Right.
for those who don't really know what banking or investment means, could you share some less obvious career paths within the field?
Sure. I experienced the same thing when I was in Solfaing High School doing IB economics. I did IB economics, over 20, 22 years ago. And, we studied supply and demand. We studied how you calculate GDP, and that's not finance. That's economics. So understanding, interpreting economic activity, efficiency, utility, productivity, those are economic topics. The difference with finance is really a study of cash flow and risk. So how do assets, companies, generate cash flow? How much do you have to invest? How much are you putting up? What is on the line? What is your investment horizon? How quickly do you get your money back? What is a reasonable rate of return for a level of risk? How to create a portfolio of different assets to diversify your risk. That's finance. And that's something it would be nice. I believe it's still not the case that there's an IB finance subject that people can choose. It wasn't when I was doing IB. But hopefully in the future, something like that will come up because there are big differences. I mean, all finance students will do some economic subjects. So if you're doing economics and you're studying microeconomics and macroeconomics, that will be useful in your first year. But finance is different.
That's great. So you've came such a long way, and now you're, a professor at one of the best universities in the world. With all this years of experience that you have, looking back, what skills or experience do you wish you had developed earlier before entering finance? So this question could really help students that want to start earlier, have that first step ahead.
Yeah, very good question. So I wish I started earlier. I didn't encounter finance until 2005. So that's first year, first semester at ANU. And as I said, I was lucky. I found something that came naturally to me that I was very passionate about. But it would have been better and would have been easier to learn about finance before coming to uni. So so if I was to travel back in time and advise myself. There's a lot of free content online on YouTube, what finance is, introduction to finance, that is available to you. Wikipedia, Investopedia, these are things that are free content available to you. You can also buy a introductory finance textbook. It doesn't even have to be new. It can be, a used one for $20. Another thing you can do is you can start looking at the financial sections of your newspapers. I know people don't use newspapers anymore, everything's online, but all those periodicals, whether they're daily news or financial news, they do have websites just like a regular newspaper that gets updated every single day. The Economist, I remember people were reading when I was in year 11 and 12 at Salford High School. But again, that's not finance. You'll find some finance articles in there. But in Australia, for example, the Australian Financial Review is the best financial news source. And wherever you are, Singapore or whoever, whichever part of the world, there will be financial news, usually free, or if not for students, accessible for a very, very low cost that you can access before coming to ANU. And I tell this to my first years. I did finance and actuarial studies or applied statistics in my first semester at university. And if you don't like finance or if you don't like whatever you're studying, change. The nice thing about universities and big universities like ANU is we have a lot of subjects. We
Yeah,
have a lot of subjects and everybody's good at something.
yeah,
Everybody's good at something, and university helps you to figure out what it is. And not everybody's good at finance. People are good at medicine. People are good at chemistry. People are good at languages, whatever it is. And so if you sort of read up on finance, like I'm advising here, and you choose finance as a first year subject at university, and it's not quite for you, you can change to something else and still have that financial knowledge that won't be wasted. I mean, even if you never work in finance or study finance, you will probably have a mortgage. You will have some kind of a pension account that you need to understand in order to have financial literacy.
that's great. That's great. That really helps with students that want to know whether finance really aligns with their strengths and interests.
Mm.
Moving now into like that modern day the use of AI. The financial industry and the finance industry is evolving very quickly with technology. How are AI, automation, and data analytics changing the traditional roles in the finance industry?
Changing quite a bit actually. So AI is just like a term that we didn't really use 10 years ago. When I was in finance, working in finance on the trading floor, it never came up. but now it's become a commonplace, including in finance. We're still in the early stages. So people think crypto is AI. It's not. Crypto is simply a decentralized ledger that can be used to fuel a whole bunch of different technologies and different transactions. Um, Currently in the finance industry, where AI is being used is for mundane tasks. So for analytical and repetitive tasks is where AI is replacing people so that you have more time to focus on the subjective aspects of analysis and decision making and advice that you provide to your clients, which AI can't really help you with. What AI does in those tasks when you provide advice, whether you should be buying and selling something, for example, AI will just leave it open to you, like, oh, possibly it's a good idea, maybe not.
Okay.
So it doesn't solve that problem. You still need human beings and analysts to give recommendations to their clients. But AI does a lot of mundane work, a lot of sort of ticking the boxes, make sure all the documentation makes sense, make sure that the advice is compliant with legislation and government regulation, that sort of stuff. I think that will change as AI becomes more and more powerful. Uh, I do see it going into trading and buying stocks and bonds in liquid in on the stock market and the bond market very because machines are faster than human beings. So it will have a bigger role there. I think it will be critical when the world transitions to a 24-hour stock market. So currently, stock markets around the world close. They usually
Yeah.
open during business days. So in Australia, it opens at 10 and closes at 4 p.m. I think maybe in 15, 20 years, we'll have a stock market that's open 24 hours a day. And for that to make happen, and also for the bank to be able to, no human being can stay awake for 24 hours.
Yeah.
You'll need AI to step in and take some of the load
Uh,
off of human beings.
so AI kind of acts like like how usually like interns like intern at like the office, like they'll do the like that type of job.
That's right. That's right. So the back office,
Okay.
so the banks usually have three offices, the back, the mid, and the front office. The front office is the where the action happens, the trading and the high risk decisions, and where the billions and billions dollars get
Yeah.
traded. The mid and the back office. So currently the back office is where AI is really stepping up. I think over not far from now, it will, and it is already creeping into the mid office, and at some point it will be a primary worker in the front office of a bank as well.
Very interesting. So in finance, with all these like handling large portions of money and how finance really makes the world work, what are some of the biggest challenges or ethical dilemmas faced by professionals in finance today?
Yeah, so you really entering quite a subjective area. Ethics is so the problem in finance is you're dealing with a lot of money. So ethical integrity is incredibly complex because we have conflicts of interest that need to be managed. So you might have a advisor, a financial analyst who might be telling their clients to buy and sell something and turn around and because it financially benefits them, that advice might not be in the best interest of their clients. So this is some of the scandals in the 80s and the 90s, the noughties. So these sorts of periods where you'll find a lot of examples where financial analysts, financial practitioners were not giving good advice simply because it benefited them financially at the cost of their clients. So in other words, short-term interest ruled, where that's when ethics get very muddled. And unfortunately, there are plenty of examples you can Google where ethics in a bank or a financial environment failed. So what you need to do is when financial incentives are high and decisions are made very quickly, there's always a temptation to prioritize short-term gains over
Okay.
long-term profitability. So issues such as insider trading, data privacy, um, using AI to do your reports for you. That's come up recently, actually, over the last couple of years.
In our
That
school as
has
well.
Yeah, at ANU as well, where students are submitting assignments written by ChatGPT. So you've
Yep.
got those dilemmas in finance as well. The big organizations, so I can talk about Credit Suisse because that was my company that I worked for. They took ethics really seriously. So the different sides of the business that could create, if they communicated, could create a conflict of interest. The windows, your swipe didn't work to go into their offices. The windows were frosted, so you couldn't see what they were working on.
Oh,
If you traded on your personal account, you were buying and selling stocks. You had to report those trades to the company and get them approved before you hit the buy or sell button. So in the big organizations, and I can talk specifically about Credit Suisse, ethics was taken really seriously. So if that's your primary concern, look for the bigger companies. They definitely take ethics seriously, but you will be in a position where you'll see examples of ethics maybe being stretched. That's why we have good training. So the CFA program, which all financial analysts have to get, actually prioritizes ethics a lot. It clearly tells you, these are the things you will encounter, and gives examples and tells you what you need to do in each scenario. At the end of the day, it comes down to common sense, and it comes down to not prioritizing short-term gain over long-term relationships with your clients in finance.
that really helps people understand the what happens behind the scenes of the finance. Other than, the scandals and the ethical concerns, there's a lot that happens in the world, like the politics, what the governments do with their inflation and stuff like that. How do
Right.
these kind of global events influence career opportunities in finance?
Yeah, they certainly do. It goes up and down. So I can tell you that when I graduated in 2008, we had the global financial crisis, which started in the real estate market, in the subprime real estate market, and sort of spread throughout finance and started shutting down banks, requiring direct government intervention and banks to be bailed out by the governments, which is unheard of in a Western democracy. And that I had a job secured at a very good bank, and I lost that job. I got a phone call,
And
basically two months after signing a contract and saying you don't have a job anymore. So it can go up and down. Luckily, those sorts of shocks are not common. So in market volatility, so that's an extreme example of a negative shock. But sometimes there are positive shocks as well. I mean, market volatility and political shifts offer a lot of opportunities in the financial market. So if there's some geopolitical risk, if Donald Trump goes crazy, if there is a some kind of a war, then
right.
trading in safe assets like gold, then commodity stocks, safe stocks, utility stocks, that goes through the roof. And the
Oh,
trading and the selling in the more riskier stocks, your energy stocks, your they're called cyclical stocks, goes down. So we actually made a lot of money when there are some political shifts and volatility in the market. So it can be both a negative and a positive. For instance, periods of inflation or volatility tend to increase demand for risk management specialists and financial analysts. That tends to actually help the jobs, how much banks are looking for. And also political shifts such as regulatory changes, new policy, changes in international finance, that can also open a lot of opportunities for new university graduates. It's not it can be positive, it can be up or down to answer your question. And market volatility is something the finance industry, while it intuitively seems like everybody just wants everything to go up and up and up in price and value because then everybody's making money. But actually, when there's a shock, it's actually also an opportunity to make money as financial assets are going down in price. So not necessarily banks start firing all their employees. That doesn't happen. There might be cuts here and there, but it is usually marginal. That example that I gave of 2008 was an extreme event that
yeah.
hasn't really repeated again.
Yeah. That's really interesting how I mean, I always thought these like global events would have a negative. It's really interesting to see and hear how they might also have a positive effect on the
Sure.
industry as well. So moving along to advice for our students, like I said, there's a lot of students in our school that are taking econs or they're taking business to go further into the finance industry like yourself.
Yep.
What practical steps can students take now in school or early university to prepare for a career in finance?
Oh, practical steps. So as I mentioned, definitely read up on finance, more so than I did when I was doing the IB program, where I just did economics, and I thought economics is finance. That is not the case. So the clear advice, and I've sort of mentioned this before, is develop financial literacy. Understand how markets work. So stock market is the one that everybody talks about, but there are many markets. There are bond markets, derivative markets, commodity markets, oil market is massive. So understand how markets work. At the end of the day, it is just two people buying and selling. So someone is buying and somebody's selling. But how does that buying and selling actually work? It goes through a financial market. So if you don't know what a financial market is, think eBay, right? eBay or some kind is nothing more than a platform. It doesn't make anything. It's not Amazon where it actually buys something, stores it, and sends it quickly. There's no inventory. eBay is just a platform where buyers and sellers have an organized way to meet each other and transact. So that's what financial markets are. So read up on how you can start with the share market, which is the largest market, but you can also look at bond market and other markets, and then interpret how then also read up on financial news that I've mentioned before. Um, Also, I would read widely and follow current financial developments, maybe transactions, some mergers and acquisitions, maybe movements of the big companies. So some of the students there might read up a lot about Nvidia is now in the news a lot. Sort of it's the
Yeah,
most valuable company in the world because it's powering the AI revolution. They have the best chips. Um, Download an NVIDIA financial statement for the last financial year. Go through what assets, what liabilities, so what loans, what assets, what's their statement of financial performance? How large are their costs? How large are their revenues? How large are their profits? Do something practical like that and be specific. Pick a company. You don't have to pick 1,000 companies. There's many companies to choose. Or pick one that you know, whether it's Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, whatever you want, and go to their website, read some of their financial statements, read some of their news. You can actually see presentations made by the CEO every year. There's an annual general meeting of shareholders where usually the CEO presents the performance of the company. You can download that stream of and just listen to it for an hour to see what they talk about. That's also very useful. So try to increase your financial literacy is the advice that I would give any way you can.
that's really useful advice. Thank you so much for that. Um, in our school, we have a lot of well, before we take IB, we have a different course. We call it IGCSE. So there we have a lot of year three students who have the choice to choose either economics or business. And then after that program, they can choose either higher level economics or business. And then for our seniors as
Yeah.
well, when they go into university, they don't know whether to choose accounting or to go into economics again or to go into finance. So with those type of students being unaware and unsure between what to study going into their next academic program, how should they make that decision?
It's a good question. They're all interconnected. So I loved accounting at university. Actually, I did some accounting courses, elective courses. But yeah, they are deeply interconnected, but they focus on different questions. So economics studies how societies, countries, um, um, individuals allocate limited resources. So basically, resources are scarce, they're limited, they're not unlimited. So you have to make decisions on how you allocate your limited resources. That's what economics really does.
Yeah,
Accounting focuses on how you organize and report your financial activity. So it really is a record of what you did and how you did it and how successful are you. So you focus
all right.
on, with accounting, you focus on accuracy and compliance. With finance, it sort of sits in between. It uses economic theory and accounting data, but it makes investment decisions and value-based decisions and risk-based decisions.
Oh,
So that's that. So again, finance is a study of cash flow and risk. We cannot do our job as financial analysts without accounting data. And economic supply and demand also comes into play because if there's no demand for your product or for your services, you have to shut down. So there's no cash flow. So it's all interconnected. But those are the distinctions that I would think about if I'm deciding between economics, accounting, and finance. But mind you, whatever university the students from your school go to, generally first year you do all three subjects. So you do an introductory accounting subject, you do an introductory economic subject, you do an introductory finance subject. If you do a business course, a business degree as your bachelor's, that's usually what happens. So in my first semester, first year, I did an introductory accounting course, an introductory finance course, an introductory economics course, and an introductory statistics course.
oh, I think that's going to be really helpful for our students to know better this when they go into their next academic program. So with that being said, my last question for you today is, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to the younger people or the younger generation who want a meaningful and a sustainable career in finance?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, so people have become so I'm a millennial. What they used to say about millennials is that we are very lazy. What they say about your generation is that you're impatient.
We have
So
very short attention spans.
so what I would say is, people sometimes get into finance because they want to make a lot of money quickly. Look, the starting salary for a finance graduate after university is very generous. As I mentioned, I was very, very happy with my salary. The hours were long, but the salary was quite good. I was very comfortable. I had a very nice life in Sydney as a result. But if you want to stay in finance, um, don't focus on the money. The money will come in finance. All jobs, not all jobs, but majority of the jobs in the finance industry are quite well paid. But recognize that your career is not about money. It's not short-termism. So what I'm trying to say is recognize that your career in finance is a marathon, not a sprint. Finance is demanding, but if you're willing to stay curious, um, you are prepared to learn continuously. You don't stop learning. I learned to this very day. You don't stop learning after you leave university. Finance is just such a broad church. It's such a broad field that somebody like George Soros or Warren Buffett, names that you probably heard before, who've been doing finance their entire life and are incredibly wealthy, they don't understand all of it. Nobody does. So it's if you are if you have the passion for it after maybe reading up on finance, taking finance as a first year course, and that passion continues, then that's you want to stay in the industry. You will earn good money, but you will find that it is you will have to continue learning because it is evolving. You mentioned AI. AI will certainly continue contributing a lot. The contributions in finance, as I mentioned, are still quite limited, but it will definitely grow. So I think that's very exciting. If I was your age, that's what would motivate me, where, it's sort of you are applying the new cutting edge AI in practice in finance. I think that's amazing. So if you find by studying some finance courses or reading up on finance that you really like this stuff, that you find it interesting, it's not boring, it's not something that you just switch off when you leave work. I remember leaving work at some crazy hour like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. And I came home and I continued thinking about, oh my God, I should have done this, I should have done that. I'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's something that really clicked in my mind that really made me feel like, oh, this is really interesting. This never stops. I can't put this down. So if you think If you are very impatient, if you really get bored easily with finance, if you find it interesting for 30 minutes, then finance is probably not for you. But if you're willing to recognize that it is a marathon, not a sprint, and that you like to be challenged and you like learning and you like integrating new technology into a field with billions of dollars of transactions every single day, then I would recommend finance for your students.
Thank you so much for that. Just one more question for like personally for myself.
Sure.
With students that are aiming to go into the finance industry and are maybe a little bit scared of those like very long hours, how would you give advice for them to be more creative in this financial industry?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So the hours don't are not long are not long forever. As a junior employee, I went to work at 7 p.m. and went home around usually 9 p.m. Sometimes later than that when we had a lot of work on. So when there were companies were reporting their results and we had to analyze them to give advice to our clients whether they should be buying and selling the stock. So the hours can be long, but as you move up in finance, you become an associate, then a vice president, then a director, then a managing director. Those hours reduce. So, and your salary goes up. So that also helps, but the hours are not crazy forever. Usually, junior employees in your first sort of 2, 3 years of your employment, the hours can be long. And I remember going to the office a few times on Sunday as well. Then if you're willing to push through that, which is not too bad when you're in your early 20s, those hours will reduce and you'll have normal hours. You'll go to office. Usually it still stays in the morning. So if you're if you're not a morning person, finance is not for you. You usually get to work around 7, but then you go home, market closes at 4 p.m. So go home around 5, 6 p.m. like a normal office employee.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you for your insight today, Professor Drienko. Thank you for your time as well. It's been a very informative session today, and I really hope that our listeners that listen to it now have a clearer picture of what it's like to work in an industry like yours, the finance industry, and how it helps find them and how they can picture themselves in that industry as well. See if it's whether it's a right path or the wrong path for them. So
Well,
yeah, that's all for today's episode of Money Matters on the Academic Ally podcast. Thank you for all the listeners for tuning in, and stay tuned for our next episode coming soon. And once again, thank you so much, Professor Drenko, for your time and insight today.
thank you for having me.
So
I
much.
hope I hope people can find a career in finance fruitful and rewarding like I did.